ourselves. We all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life here at Black Star Network with me, Dr. Jacquie. As always, I get so excited when we come to this day in our week. You know, we've been talking about common sense, and we've discovered that sometimes common sense is just not that common. Well, today, our guests and our contributors are going to really enlighten us on what it means to have mother wit. You know, the wisdom that you've gotten from your parent or your grandparent or your great grandparent, some of the things that we've just discovered along the way as we're growing and maturing. You see, learning how to balance our life, utilizing mother wit can be another way in which to keep ourselves sane. Yep, I said it, because it is so easy to lose our focus and our footing as we're navigating this particular season in all of our lives. Today, I am going to be joined by Charlotte Avery, Dr. Tierney, Stacey Owens, and Rhonda Dallas. Hey, ladies.
Hey.
Hello.
I am so excited to see you guys. And let me tell you, you know, we've all been in that space where people ask us questions like, how do you know that? Where'd you get that from? How did you discover the best way to navigate your life? And oftentimes I literally think that it's mother wit, that wisdom, that common sense that we've just kind of garnered over the ages. Oh yeah, I said ages because we're a little more seasoned than we might look, and we're kind of proud of that. And so it is today on our show that we're going to talk about what it looks like to just really harness that power of, you know, balancing emotions through what our parents taught us, things we're going to keep and not keep. I want to start with Rhonda, because Rhonda, you know, you are a mom of four, a wife, and you're in that space and season where our health is really a big part of things that we've grown to know. When you think about wisdom and common sense and, you know, mother wit, tell us one thing that your mom or grandmother taught you about how to navigate.
Well, from a healthcare standpoint, Dr. Jacquie, my grandmother was in healthcare. I'm in healthcare. And one of the things that we don't tend to follow that I follow now is go back to following your gut. Look at your children's faces. Look at your face. Your eyes tell it all, whether you feel good or not. It starts with your eyes. And don't be in such a rush to overlook your health and your symptoms because of someone else's needs.
Now, that's a very interesting thing that you said related to overlooking your health and your wellness and discovering what things from a common sense perspective work for you, but they may not work for other people and vice versa. Why is it important to find your own lane, Rhonda, and stay in it when it comes to navigating your personal common sense and mother wit?
Because, Dr. Jacquie, it's so much data out here now, and about 50 to 60% of it is incorrect. So we're battling against this tyrant called Google to self-diagnose ourselves. But we know in our gut, you know, follow your gut. You know your instinct. You saw your grandmother. You saw your mother. You saw some woman of influence do the right thing when they weren't feeling well. So just follow what we started in history, and history repeats itself. The body never changed. Our Adamic and our way of working and living changed us, but the makeup of the actual anatomy of our body never changed.
That's very interesting. Charlotte, talk to us about that for a moment. What are some of the things that you've discovered as you've been growing? I'm kind of tickled when Rhonda talks about, you know, our body changes. And, you know, sometimes I watch our shows, you know, throughout the course of the week, and I'm like, oh, the body is changing. But, you know, Charlotte, when you think about things that you've learned from your mom and stuff that has been taught to you, how do you embrace that and include that in who you are as a woman?
I embrace it a lot. You know, my mom has always been a woman of like really great wisdom. And, you know, so when it came to like the law of reciprocity and treating others the way you want to be treated, and, you know, all those things, like all those golden rules, you know, a penny saved is a penny earned, and all of these different things. I mean, I didn't always like really embrace the penny saved, penny earned part because I was really a spender. But, now in these years, now that I have 7 children and one in college and, all these different things, like I really do embrace a lot of the things that my mom taught me. And sometimes I'm like, man, I'm really turning into my mom. But actually, my mom thinks that my mother's wit is far funnier than hers. But I think that, having 7 kids just kind of makes you turn it up a little bit more so that, you don't go on flip mode. Well, not y'all, but me. So I don't go on flip mode.
Okay, so explain to us what flip mode is, because I know people are going to be watching and they're saying, flip mode. Let me see if that's something I actually do that I may need to monitor. So what is flip mode?
Flip mode is when you have a little bit of go off itness up in you. It's when you hear DMX in your head when your children are going off and they're saying, and you hear DMX saying, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. It's like I have to bring my mother's wit in there, and I have to get real calm and real gentle and say, you know what? Obedience is better than sacrificing your butt cheeks. Instead of me now getting loud and verbose and just really going off and walking off or slamming a door or doing something crazy.
You're bringing some mother wit to us now. And I love what you said about being able to pause and check ourselves before we, go back to some place that we clearly have been delivered from. And a lot of that is a part of common sense. We don't want to, put our children in those spaces of, having heard from, being able to say certain things or using certain tone of voices that, can engage them in a positive way and then sometimes in a negative way. Stacey, when we talk about what this looks like for us and how we're moving and growing, what are some of the things that you have learned that you are now bringing into your space?
Some of the things that I've learned that I'm bringing into my space, I would say that, first of all, when you're in the learning phase, a lot of times when my mother was teaching those lessons at that time, you don't understand it. You don't get it. My mother was really good about sharing life stories. And, as a young adult or a young child, you're just like, yeah, whatever, mom. It doesn't make sense until you start experiencing life. And then as you're going through those moments of life experiences, you start hearing the words of your mother in the back of your mind. And you're like, oh, that's what you meant. And so I think what I've learned to bring into this space is to remember those stories that she used to tell and teach, and then started applying that to teaching it to my students as well as my personal kids. So, like that one when she would tell you birds of a feather flock together. When you want your friends at a younger age, you don't really care about birds flocking. You just want to be around the friends that you have chose to be with. And then as you experience things and you start seeing and you look back at kids that you used to hang with, and half of them make it as far as you did, and you just by the grace of God didn't go where they went, you start understanding that, you got to be important, start learning who you are, and then start being around who you desire to be. Those lessons don't make sense when she was telling it to me as a young adult, but now I find myself telling my personal kids and the students here at the school those same things. Like, you just got to take those stories with you.
Oh, I can concur with that. Taking those stories with us, these are things our mothers taught us and how we're using them in our daily lives today. Some of the things we're keeping, some of the things we're going to talk about, what we're going to toss. Dr. Tierney, talk to us for a little bit about some of the things that you've learned that you are putting into place today as it relates to mother wit and wisdom and common sense, something your mom shared with you that is truly a part of who you are as a woman today.
Absolutely. So I had the benefit of having multiple mothers. It took a village to raise me, a whole village. And I had my mom, but I also had my grandmother, so my mother had me young. And so my grandmother, we stayed with my grandmother and she was right there. And there were so many things that she taught me that I can't even begin to to think of all of the things. And right along with my grandmother, I also had my aunt. So there's my mom, there's my grandmother, and there's my aunt. And so between the three of them, they made sure that I knew everything. I know last episode we were talking about just kind of common sense, book sense, street sense. It's like my mom took the helm where it came to the street sense and the common sense. My grandmother took the helm where it came to just the kind of the academics and knowing how to just stoking the intellectual fires, within me. And then same thing with my aunt. She took over in the spiritual sense and being able to understand and discern the Bible and God and all of those things. So there's so many things that they taught me kind of together as a unit that it literally on any given day, I may say something and my mom may say, "You sound just like Medea." Or Medea would say, "You sound just like Stephanie." Or Stephanie would say, "Oh my gosh, you sound like your mama," And so it's all three of them just kind of compiled into one. So thinking of one thing that they taught, I'm really unable to do so because it's so much, so much.
I think that this conversation that we're having as it relates to pouring into each other's lives brings us to that space of really saying, not only did our mom teach us some things, I think we have a pattern here that most of us were probably raised by young parents. When we come back after the break, let's talk about that for a minute. What it looks like to have been raised by a young parent and how that village aspect really pertains to what we're doing today and keeping us stable, balanced in this emotional stability place when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. Let me tell you, we're talking today about motherwit and common sense. Sometimes we say we're turning into our moms. We sound like our moms or another relative or a grandparent. I want to say that my mom had me maybe like 2021, which I would consider still a young parent. And oftentimes we have seen and stated in our community that that is taboo. Well, the reality is young parents get the benefit of having other mature adults around them as they're raising their child. I want to bring our group back in because there's some value in the wisdom that you get from the various generations that have been in our spaces as we were maturing. I think Dr. Tierney stated that there was a mom, there was an aunt, there was a grandmother. And I know that my mom in her 20s, still being in college when she had me, we lived with my great grandmother. And so there was this benefit of having this extra wisdom and common sense around the table or just in the home. Charlotte, when you think about having our elders around, why is that of value to us today? And how can we use that to help balance our conversation and communication?
Oh my goodness. It is so important and so valuable. And I know that just in raising my children. So, I have the honor and privilege of still having my mom. My mom just turned 75. And I'm so blessed because my mom I always say my mom has grown up with my children and my children have grown up with my mom because she's still living. And so, from my youngest who's 18 to my oldest who's 8, they've all had so much time with her. And I mean, just the lessons that my mom is able to teach them and the seeds that she's sown into them, whether it be about scripture or money. My mom taught all of my children how to tie their shoes, and all of them remember that. When it comes to cooking certain things that they like to eat and taking them places and just having really poignant conversations when they play Scrabble with her, or just going for walks or riding bikes and things like that. It has just been so valuable because sometimes, I know that as a mom, there are certain things that I share with my children and I tell them, but they need more than me. And so I'm so glad that not only do they have me and not only do they have my husband, but they have, their elder and somebody who's lived this life even longer than I have and longer than their dad has, who has experience and who has experienced life from a different generation and a different standpoint, because my mom can also talk to my children and say, well, back in the day, or, when I was such and such an age, or when your mom was this age, or what have you. And so just to be able for her to be able to sow seeds, or, we say some plant, some water, God brings the increase. But, my mom has been a seed waterer in the lives of my children. And it's just been so invaluable. That'll be better than any tangible gift that they'll ever receive from her, because, gifts fade and they get old and tattered. They won't, my prayer is that Jesus will just come and rapture us and just take us all away before he takes my mama, because I don't know what I would do without her, but I don't know what my children would do without her either. And so it's so important. I mean, even with my son being in college now, he calls and he'll say, well, grandma told me such and such and such and such and whatever. And grandma was right. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But I'm like, but I told you the same thing. But, it really isn't. Now it's just like, I don't even care how you got the information, as long as you got it from somebody with good sense. But to know that person has been my mom it's just so beautiful.
I think that that's wonderful, and how we establish these baselines for engagement. Stacey, as we talk about this, and you're in a school setting, and I know you come across a lot of moms, how does this village aspect of motherwit in the school and common sense help build a sense of sustainability for your students?
So for my school, I'm going to just speak about my school because I don't know about anyone else, because we intentionally create this home environment here. I'm very small. I only have about 100 kids. And so we sort of embrace our students in a different way, more so than what you would get in that traditional setting. And so the staff sort of my female teachers become the mothers for our students. And so if we have students that have incarcerated parents or may not have access to their mothers, they're with their mom sometimes, and then sometimes with their grandmother, we find those gaps. So if you're not getting all the mother wit that you should be getting from your natural home life, we fill in with the lessons and so forth that we feel that the population needs as well. So it's important, like you said, like everyone have said before, it takes a village. So it's about identifying that village and then being able to tap into, whoever who's coming with good intent. Good intentions is key here, because you don't want to be taking advice and taking wit from everyone, because you don't know where to land you. But we intentionally create that space where we fill in gaps for students.
I think that that's outstanding. Rhonda, in this space of the village has a way of correcting you and redirecting you. Can you talk about that for a moment for our audience who's in that space of utilizing church and utilizing community organizations and, working with medical care teams to just kind of help people navigate life? Because oftentimes our young moms don't have people to talk to for a variety of reasons that Stacey, literally just mentioned. Some are incarcerated, some are in the military, some are ill, and it does take all of us. Share with us, Rhonda, what does that look like, that sense of community for young moms seeking out guidance and direction?
It's so funny that you asked me this. One of my employees has had some attendance and tardy issues recently, and I had that conversation with her. It wasn't about what corporate America said, but I asked her, I said, do you have a village? Do you have a place where her husband is deployed in the military? So it's just her here in Houston, Texas. I said, let me help you get a village. And she said, well, what is a village? And I explained to her. I said, it starts with a person like myself, and then it can grow. I said, do you have a church home? And she said, well, no. And I said, well, that's village number 2. I'm 1, church would be 2. And we will surround you with the wit and the wisdom that we've gained, as well as an extension to your beliefs for your children. I always tell people, they say, how did you pick your godparents for your children? And I said, it was because of the belief system that they had. We're on the same page. And so I think it's so important for young women, especially single moms out here, to get a village as soon as they can, but get someone that speaks the same language and has the same beliefs as you do. It will help you make those decisions of the right physician, the right dentist, the right healthcare system for your entire family.
I think that's outstanding because, oftentimes people suffer in silence and they suffer alone. And if they didn't come from a home life where they had other people to talk to them, sometimes they can be directionless. So Dr. Tierney, in that space of, navigating your village, your new community, being away from home for the first time, how do you help people establish a lane? Because some people don't have one. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to fit in or where to fit in. What does that look like as people are developing this sense of directionality?
It's similar to what Rhonda just mentioned. It's first talking to the person to see, okay, where are you and where do you want to go? How do you want this thing to play out? I was recently talking to my mom and I told her that her number one strength was that she welcomed the village, that she could have taken the position and just said, no, this is my child. I know what to do. But as a young mother, she had the wisdom to say, no, I need help. And so she invited people into her village. And so that's the number one thing. It's, okay, where are you? Where do you want to go? And are you open to receiving help? Are you, being closed off and maybe we have this thing and I get it. Sometimes it's, I don't want nobody in my business. I don't want nobody, I've been hurt by people. So I don't trust people, and so there's a piece of it where we have to work with, when I work with my clients, we have to work on, what are those issues? Is there any hurt? Are there any trust issues? So that you can be ready and willing and open to receiving a village. And then once you're willing and open to receiving a village, then it's identifying, okay, who are the appropriate people in the village? So with my mom and in our situation, we kind of had a built-in village. My grandmother had 8 children. And so my mom was one of 8. And so the aunt that I mentioned, she was actually the baby of the family. So she was still at home in high school when I was born. So she was just by fault right there in the village, and then there were my other aunts and then my mom's good friends. And, so who was in her village, her friends kind of became a default village that honestly, I still draw on that village to this day, and so you have to look around you to see, okay, who are my people that are already there, and take an assessment of, are these the people that are also aligned with where ultimately I want to go and what I want to see manifest in my children's lives, if children are a part of this equation here. And so that is the place where you then start to say, okay, here's who my village is. Here's the people that I can trust. Here's the organizations, the community, or whatever it is, the church family, that then becomes the village. But it first starts with you being open to say, I'm open to receiving help from the village.
Absolutely. There is a wellspring of knowledge that's out there for each of us to receive. And as we consider what it looks like to not only balance our spaces, there's some healing that has to take place. Our feelings and emotions are sometimes wrapped up in the relationship that we have with the adults in our life, specifically our mothers, their mothers, and their mothers. When we're back after the break, let's talk a little bit about healing.
These are the only bins that will accommodate larger, rollerboard have 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out until you die. And you eat him, you eat 10.
Oh my God.
So what?
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And this conversation related to who we are, what we do, and how we get along in life is oftentimes wrapped up in feelings and emotions. And if I had to really think about some things that I would say personally to you, I would say mend that relationship. Don't waffle about having the conversation. Figure out what that conversation needs to look like. Go to your mom, your grandmother, help them reconcile their relationship, because oftentimes we teach other generations how not to be healed, how not to be whole, how not to be healthy. I want to talk to everyone a little bit about how do you begin those conversations of healing when you know there's a rift in the relationship between the moms. Hey, y'all, let's talk about it. I know that there's some people out here watching and they're like, I can't stand my mama. I mean, I love her, but I don't like her ways. Or, my mom and I had a blow up. I ran away from home. I don't ever want to go back. I don't like how they treat me. People are still walking around today with hurt. How do we help our audience heal and then begin to move forward? Rhonda.
I would say the first thing to let our audience know is, number one, no one's perfect. Our moms did the best that they could. Some things might have transpired that shouldn't have or are still transpiring, but they're still physically here. I'm always reminded of my friends whose moms are not here, and mine is still here. And so even during this short pandemic time where we had to be separated physically, I had a really good intimate time with God, being able to reflect on areas of my own life where I felt there might have been a rift or something happened. And so I would say, first of all, apologize. Even if the person doesn't apologize or seem to think that they did anything wrong, I accept your apology, and then see what role and part you played. And then take out that time to really process what just transpired, and then keep moving. That's the key. Keep moving.
That's easier said than done, Rhonda. We're saying keep it moving. If you had to give a tip on how to keep it moving, what would you say?
I would say the first thing that my tip for myself is keep looking ahead and forward, and know that what was done in the past has been done in the past. Let's look forward to a bright future together.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm going to come to Stacey next because Stacey, one of the things that we're trying to discover is how do we help people heal and open the lines of communication when there's been a tear in the relationship between mother and child or son and mom or dad. How do we help community move forward?
You know, I get this one a lot. And so I always start with saying, let's look within self first. Let's identify your own personal hurt and talk about why you're still holding on to the hurt, because you're in control of how you feel and the emotions that you get from when you feel like someone else has done you wrong. No one can do you. People can do things that you don't agree with and that can really hurt you, but you're in control of the emotions, of controlling your own emotions that come from that. And then after we look at self, we go outward to say, you know, I tell kids a lot, you know, your mother did the best that they could with the tools that they had. There are some parents who needed more tools in their toolbox for parenting, but parenting does not come with a manual. And so with their experiences, how can we have some grace for their experiences and the things that they've had to go through to learn what they currently learn to be able to pour into you? And if they gave you a dirty pour, or if they didn't do the things that they need to do, can we find that graceful period or that graceful space of forgiveness, self-forgiveness? Because forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you. So what can we do within ourselves so that we can let go of what someone else or what we feel or perceive that someone else has done to us? Because at the end of the day, your mother did one thing that was right. They made the choice to bring you into this world, because you have choices. When you become impregnated, you have choices to make. So if you're here, you're here. So let's be grateful. And then let's identify how we can work around the hurt that came from whatever you felt they did not have the tool or the power to give you. So I think if we make it about ourselves first and identifying what we can let go of, what we, you know, and then we can talk about it too. So I say, you know, find the parts that you really feel like you need to talk or express to move forward. Write it in a letter. And if they're still living, give them the letter. I mean, my personal son is dealing with that right now with his father. It's some things that he felt he could have done better. And I tell him all the time, the person he was at 20 when you came into this world, he's not that same person at 50. So if we can't let go of the 20-year-old him, you're never going to get past building a current relationship. So write down the things that you felt you didn't get and the things you feel that they need to do, and then give it to them in a letter. And if you don't want to give it to them in a letter, write it down so it can be released out of you, and then burn it or do something to let it go. But you have to let it go.
Wow.
Grip that they have onto you.
Stacey, that right there is a word in itself. If you can't get past the 20-year-old person who is now 50, then there is a lot of work to do. And I say that to say that there are so many of us. I'm putting myself in this basket too, because there was a time that I would have been included in that I can't let it go bunch. And I think that we're in that space. If we're going to really say that we want to heal, that we want to get our emotions in check, that we want to live balanced lives, we've got to discover that access point in place where we can begin to let stuff go. Dr. Tierney, what say ye?
So I have to throw myself in that basket too. But I want to respond to this from the place of not just as the coach, but as the daughter that had a tumultuous relationship with her mother and her father. And so when you asked Rhonda, how do you move forward? I agree with everything that my esteemed colleagues have already said. Stacey, Rhonda, I agree with everything that you've said. The thing I would add to that in terms of how to move forward, this is where boundaries come into play, you know, because sometimes we can get into this space where it's, well, I'm the mama. And so the Bible says, honor thy mother and thy father. And so you just need to do what I say, you know. And so this is where I have to pull out that scripture. Well, it also says, provoke not thy children to wrath. So there's a responsibility on both ends for both sets, the daughter, the son, and the parent, the mother, to have those boundaries to say, hey, here's how we will move forward in our relationship. This is what it will look like moving forward. Sometimes that can mean boundaries around personal time. It can mean boundaries around finances. It will be unique for each individual, each set of parents, and the child. But when we're talking about moving forward, letting go those things that are behind and stretching forward towards those things that will be. But how do we want those things to look? What do we want it to look like right now? What is it that you need as a mom? What is it that you need as a daughter or a son? And let's define how our relationship is going to move forward, here. Not looking at, like you said, the 20-year-old, that you were, but as the 50-year-old that you are now, or 60-year-old that you are now, and the 30, 40-year-old that I am now, what is it that we need at this point? And not getting locked into the titles or what parenting used to look like, or even some of the generational, parenting, patterns that might have been detrimental, to the relationship moving forward, but really looking at how do we want to move forward, and let's hit some boundaries around that.
Let's hit some boundaries. Healing requires a roadmap. Charlotte Avery, you wrote a book about it, Things They Didn't Tell You. Can you share with us some of the things that you have learned that can help us grow so that our communities can begin to heal and live in balance?
So one thing that I want to say, just surrounding everything that everybody has said about healing, is this. Healing is a choice, and you have to choose to want to heal. And it's not, your healing is about you. It's not necessarily about the other person. And for me, I had a very tumultuous relationship with my father. And, although I have a really great relationship with my mom, I had to have some really hard conversations, even with my mom, about, some choices and decisions and things of that nature. And I just really believe that, if, forgiveness is for you, it's for you to be able to heal and move on, but you have to make a choice. And, as parents, we are really just like, we're not perfect people, as somebody has already said, but at the same time, you have to want to heal. And if you want to heal, then you have to get down and you have to make the choice to do the down and dirty, painful work of healing and pulling up roots and doing all the things as if you were, tilling the soil in a garden. And so my thing is, if we're going to mend our relationships, we need, even if our parents are not living and my father's no longer living, we still need to find a way to mend those relationships, even when they're dead and gone, so that we can be better parents and so that we can be better, for ourselves, but so also it can also pour over into our relationships within our marriages and our children and all of those things. And so I say, make the choice. Healing is a choice. Loving another person is a choice. Choosing to heal for yourself is a choice. And you choosing to do that work is a choice.
Choosing to do that work is a choice. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk a little bit about that, because there's some things that you're still holding on to. We're all learning how to let it go when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And let me tell you, this particular show today has been outstanding and a blessing to me, because I come to you in that space of learning and knowing what it means to no longer hold on to hurt. And our guests today are going to talk a little bit about the detriment of holding on to that. I know you tried and it keeps coming back. And, Charlotte already told us it takes work. You're going to have to get in there with the shovel and you got to till the ground. You're going to may have to chop away some concrete and do a whole bunch of things because it's been embedded in us for such a long time. Hey, ladies. So, this common sense living that we've been talking about, we already have stated time and time again that common sense is not that common. Why do people keep beating themselves against a wall, a brick wall, literally being stubborn? Does that come by nature, or is it natural? Or is it something that's been taught? Why can't people just let it go? Rhonda,
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. You ready to jump in there?
What I want to say is, I think that sometimes when we don't let it go, we don't let it go because it's giving us some level of power. It's giving us some level of control. As a child, when your parents hurt you, it's like, okay, you honor your parents, you respect them, you do whatever, and you're living in their house. So there are certain things that you can't control as a child. But when you become an adult, and let me just say, when I became an adult, and it was a little bit after I got married and I really set boundaries and put my foot down on some things, I chose now to no longer live in a place of stubbornness, but to live in a place of freedom. And in order for me to get free, I had to have very hard conversations with both of my parents saying, listen, when you have a conversation with me, I don't want to hear about what the other person said or did, whatever, you're having a conversation with me. And then really, having conversations that held people accountable for the decisions and the choices that they made that impacted me, but still being able to have the opportunity to say that I forgive. But I will tell you that not being in a place of stubbornness and not forgiving, it was like my own way of having power over my choices and just being real stern, like, no, I don't have to do that. No, you don't deserve that, blah, 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 and just going on and on and on. And so sometimes I think we do it out of power because as children, we felt like we had no power. So now as an adult, I do. And not only that, but, it's like, I think what Katy Perry's song, what doesn't, break you makes you stronger. Well, it did make me strong in some ways. It made me a lot stronger, but not all of that strength was for the good. It was for the good at the time for protection. But then when I got into my adult years and became a wife and a mother, I could see how it was some of that strength and stubbornness was very harming.
I like that because you literally are hitting the nail on the head as it relates to how people need to take a second look at themselves. Why are we holding on to things of the past? And do we still need that level of protection and security? Can we relax just a little bit to find the newness that belongs to us? Go ahead, Rhonda.
Well, for me, I can honestly say that holding on allowed me to play possum or play victim or even have a crutch as to the things that I knew that God had called me to do. I use those tools in my toolkit of unforgiveness to say, this is why I can't pull this off for your people, Lord, or this is why I won't be successful in that. And so you have to be very careful not to use unforgiveness as a crutch or for yourself to play victim so that you can be less of what you're called to be. And therefore, if you don't do anything today, it's okay because somebody did something to you 20 years ago.
20 years is a long time to hold on to things. And so I'm going to double back to Rhonda for a second, because that holding on with you being in the health field is part of the reason why people are sick. How does a lack of forgiveness and not letting go cause illness in the body?
So there is something called the silent killer, which is stress. And what it does is it will manifest itself inwardly first and then externally second. By the time it gets to the external side, we have a problem in our healthcare system with your body. And so what it does is it plays mind not only on the body, but on the brain. And so you can have all of what you want to do tomorrow. Have you ever been where you said, tomorrow I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And by the time it's 9:15 a.m., you have decided that you don't want to do anything. That is stress playing a trick on the mind. When it doesn't get its way with the mind, it then starts to attack the organs of the body, which is why you see things like high blood pressure in people that are normally healthy and have no hereditary influences of high blood pressure, diabetes due to overeating, due to anxiety is high now, and especially in people of color. We're seeing things now that we've never seen in our race. And it's really because there's something bigger than that we just haven't let go of.
Wow. Dr. Tierney.
So there's a couple of things that I see happening as to why people struggle with kind of moving forward or letting things go. One is that they are trying to ignore it. You know, if I ignore it, then it doesn't exist. Then I don't have to address whatever the emotion is. I don't have to go through the grieving process. I don't have to deal with whatever it is that I feel. So if I ignore it and just stuff it down, then, you know, it doesn't exist, but clearly it does. And so that's the reason why they can't quite let that thing go. And they might not even really know why. You know, they may say things like, oh, ain't nobody worried about that. Oh, child, that don't bother me, you know, but they're still kind of holding on to it because they haven't really went through the process of really processing what it is that they feel, the situation, how they hurt, or whatever it is, you know. The second thing that I see often is there's an expectation piece. You know, what I really want is to have a healthy, happy, whole relationship with my mother. You know, and so that is my expectation. And she's not doing this or it's not doing that. And so I'm holding on to it because I'm trying to bend it to my will. I'm trying to bend it to be what it is that I wanted, you know, to be what my expectation is and for it to meet my expectations. Whereas sometimes we have to just love people where they are. You know, your mother is who she is, you know, and so we can't make our mom be the cookie baking mom if that's not who she is, you know, if that's not who she is, you know. And so sometimes we keep beating a dead horse or beating against a brick wall because we want our mom to bake us those cookies. You know, that is our expectation, but that's not who she is, you know. So we have to make sure that our expectations are actually in check and that we're not trying to bend things to our will or bend people to our will, and it's not who they are. So,
Stacey.
I'm going to say, because I've seen this quite a bit too, sometimes it can be associated to fear. You have to be careful of not wanting to or that victim-minded mindset, because if I let go of what I'm holding on, the thing that I know, like I know that hurt, I know that pain, I know what you did to me. If now I'm looking outward at you. If I let that go, now what I'm going to replace it with? Now I got to replace it with something that's going to better me. I got to start looking at me because I let the outer source go. And so now I open up a window where if I'm not sure about who I am and what I want to be and where I want to go next, if I let go of your hurt and pain, what am I going to focus on now if I don't know how to focus on me? And sometimes it can be with fear.
So when we talk about these things as it relates to fear, I'd like for each of you to tell me one thing, don't do it. If you had to talk to young parents and youth today, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate this parent-child relationship, what is something you would say, don't do it? Dr. Tierney.
Don't think that just because you have a village, grandma, auntie, or someone else that is helping you to raise your child, don't think that you have to shut them out in order for you to be, you know, a better mom. Lean on your village. Use your village. Don't shut people out. Let them help you.
Charlotte.
Don't be out here in these motherhood streets struggling by yourself. get your support system and let your support system be reciprocal. I believe that every support system should be give and take. I believe that as somebody supports me when I need support, that, when they need me and I'm able to support them, that's what I should do. But you know what, as mothers, we don't have to be out here struggling by ourselves. I think that's just a trick of the enemy to wear us out so that we can be worn down, so that we can kill the generation that God's birthed through us. And so just don't do it by yourself. Just don't.
Rhonda.
Don't overthink. If you need help, get help.
And Stacy.
Don't quit on yourself. You deserve a better you. So whatever steps you want to take for your self-improvement, keep going, even when it gets difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful tips, wonderful advice, wonderful sage sound mother wit to help us figure out how to live this balanced life. When we're back after the break, I'll give my reflections on how to keep you moving forward.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Let me just say this off the top of my head. If I had to say what not to do, I would say don't speak out of turn. That's very important when it comes to common sense, because oftentimes we don't know the entire situation. A very big part of us being able to balance our lives is understanding where the other individual is coming from. First, seek to understand before trying to be understood. This will allow us to have an equal opportunity and level the playing field of what it means to not only impart common sense, but also to gain wisdom and knowledge that will allow us to grow, to heal, and to be better. After all, living a balanced life is designed to guide us, to aid us, to assist us in how to move our lives forward as we are filled with tons of emotions, trying not to lose our mind, literally discovering how to navigate this new normal that is before us. As you're growing, as you're learning, allow yourself to discover what you need. Write out a plan, write a couple of letters, figure out what you need, and then let the village in. Find some people that you can trust, that you can lean and depend on. There are people around you. They may not look like it, but they literally do have their stuff together. Give them a try. Reach out, ask simple questions, and you'll get the answers and responses that you need to allow you to live a balanced life. Bye now.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.